What do you think about the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict? Ghislaine Maxwell case starts today in case y'all got distracted again. Remember her? Yep. Unfortunately it's in federal court and will not be televised. All that there will be are transcripts. I hope somebody uploads a supercut of the prosecution. See a lot of mentions on how they essentially were trash. The prosecutor was the greatest defense attorney I've ever seen. Stranger on YouTube. You had your gun slung on your back and you were moving down the street. Why didn't you take it off and leave it there or give it to someone? There were several of the prosecutor's questions that made me scratch my head. The one where he asked why someone would be urgent about putting out a fire may be my favorite. Because it was a fire, was there any other possible response? Kyle really killed it on the stand. The other great moment was when the prosecutor asked him for "Dos more whores. Is that your account?" And he just looked him straight in the face and went, "Yes, sir." Is it true you play Call of Duty and in these games you shoot other people? After that dumb shit of a prosecutor was all like ISITC or court T had YOUP la lead Kalines OF duty. W here THYHAVGUNs licky R15s. I ducking swear that the prosecutor was gonna accuse Kyle of buying tickets to Joker 2019. Mr. Rittenhouse, is it true that you once bought an Eminem CD that contained vulgar and angry lyrics? That damn heavy metal music is pollution to our children's ears. I think they should have just turned off the lights and gone home when the prosecution witness said he pointed his gun at Rittenhouse before Rittenhouse shot him. Kind of like the mercy rule in Little League Baseball. When you're down 25-0 it's time to call it. Not surprised by the verdict, and I was surprised at how poorly the prosecutor did. Not that he had a good case, but what he did present was poorly done. A lot of times prosecution teams try to overcharge and over-indict suspects. No doubt this happened here. They would have had a better chance of winning against Rittenhouse if they had charged him for fewer offenses of reckless endangerment and due regard for safety or similar Wisconsin sections, and argued that Rittenhouse should not have been there, don't that, etc. They would have never won against the self-defense argument. The prosecutors actually trying the case likely didn't get final call on the charges themselves, then were forced to try to make lemonade from a shit sandwich. Might be the worst prosecution team I've ever witnessed. MF pulls out a rifle in court. Not American, but as a lawyer I can safely say that prosecutor should have his ass thrown back at criminal process in college. The prosecution was embarrassingly bad. How do they accept a guy like that in public service? He's an assistant district attorney, which means he's appointed by the elected district attorney. He should lose his license after this case. Seems more like they wanted to palm off the unwinnable case to someone willing to be the scapegoat prosecutor, which only a terrible lawyer would want. He'll probably be admonished in public, but then looked after by the DA behind closed doors. Not surprising in the slightest. When they were asking him about the violent video games he played, you know they were grasping at straws. I was watching that part live, and I could not believe what I was hearing. Especially when they mentioned there's no such thing as a left-handed or a right-handed gun, as someone cursed with being left-handed. Duck binger. There absolutely is such a thing. The way he was waving that rifle around during closing arguments made it pretty clear he knows next to nothing about guns. I think he knew. And it was more along the lines of scaring the jury by flagging them with the scary black machine gun. I would agree if his finger wasn't on the trigger. I get the intimidating feel of it and wanting the jury to feel how scary it can be, but that is accomplished with finger off the trigger. He's an asshole. Knew CPR and couldn't even stop the prosecutor from choking on his own words. I have no opinion on the verdict, but this will definitely be shown in law schools on how not to be a prosecutor. It should be studied as a case not to bring to trial, except that doing so has forced into the public record the facts so many people are determined not to acknowledge. Not many will admit this, but they brought it to trial to avoid riots. This entire shitshow was political theater. It was, you want us to charge this kid? Here, look at what you're actually asking us to do. There. Are you satisfied? Now go home. The literal definition of a show trial. In Canada, trials are very private. Jury members aren't allowed to talk about what is said in the deliberation room or about the case to anyone, not even their family. If they do, it's a $5,000 fine or 6 months in jail. I recently listened to a Crime Beat episode where 2 jury members were interviewed by a crime reporter who reported on the high-profile trial for Douglas Garland here in Canada. One of the jury members who did not disclose their identity or speak directly to what was said in the trial said that he thinks the US public system is better because of the emotional toll that secret can cause people who were simply called to be on a jury. I think that a too public of trial isn't fair to the accused. But I also think that it is very unfair to ask a random civilian to keep something so heavy to themselves. I wonder if some sort of middle ground would ever be possible for either country. I'm surprised it got this far. Prosecutorial misconduct was so rampant in this case. I'm legitimately surprised it didn't end in a mistrial, withholding evidence, trying to introduce evidence to the jury that was not permitted, and trying to hold the defendant exercising his Fifth Amendment right against him. Might be that the judge trusted that the jury would see what the prosecutor was doing for what it was. Of the 2 outcomes, mistrial with prejudice and acquittal by the jury, I can imagine that the judge preferred the latter for a whole host of reasons. Everyone I know who is a lawyer only thought one thing: the case is a loser. It seems like everyone who actually knows about law already knew what the outcome was going to be before the judge or prosecutor started in with their bullshit, while everyone else was busy reading tea leaves. Exactly what I've been trying to tell people. It doesn't matter how much you want him to be guilty. The law and the evidence are pretty clear. Even if the prosecution hadn't bumbled certain stuff, it would have still lost. The kid was innocent by the standards of the law. That I need to stop reading about current events in 140 character bytes as they happen. I was fed a completely false narrative on the event here on Reddit, and I'm absolutely ashamed that I'm as easily fooled as a boomer on Facebook. I'm done with hot takes. Let me know the news of the year at the end of the year. Opinions are overrated. You are not part of the problem, because once presented with the evidence you didn't reject objectivity in an effort to remain right. My perception of the events changed over the course of the trial, which I guess is specifically why we have a trial process. Before, I thought this kid was guilty as heck and the self-defense claim would be BS. As the trial unfolded, new testimonies and evidence was presented. The evidence was pretty obvious that this kid defended himself. Should he have been there and even had the weapon to begin with? That's 100% a different discussion. But the question of is he guilty of murder, to me, was a resounding no. I think he had the right to defend himself as soon as the victims began attacking and rushing him. So this is ridiculous. You're not allowed to change your opinion when faced with new information. I think the media are trying their hardest to make it divide the people even more and stir up more ill feeling. That's how they make their money and get engagement, especially the cable news networks. Print media is somewhat better, depending on the source in question. Outrage sells way better than sex ever has. News media does everything it can to drive up fear and outrage, to get viewership or sell newspapers. As an attorney, it was pretty clear there was some concern that the jury may split the baby and convict him on a lesser included for the second death. But you have to remember the standards you're dealing with. Once you move away from the political background noise and look at it as the way the law looks at self-defense, it becomes pretty clear. Quick question: was there a specific moment for you where the prosecution's case went sideways? A decisive answer during cross-examination perhaps. The only actual in-person eyewitness to the first shooting, called by the prosecution, stated that he was lunging at Rittenhouse, yelling "F you," and trying to grab his gun. Not what the prosecution wanted out of that witness. Was it the one where the prosecutor went in like, "You never talked to Mr. Rosenbaum, correct? So your opinion on his intentions is complete guesswork, right? Well, he did yell "duck you" and went for the gun. I was in bits when that exchange happened. Too good. I feel like this is the kind of comment section that I should grab my popcorn for. Sort by controversial. I don't want to lose brain cells, thank you. He wasn't guilty, and he's not a hero. Both are true. I think the guy who spearheaded the prosecution should be considered unqualified to hammer in a nail. But also think this was the correct verdict. I'm Australian, so obviously whole other kettle of fish if it happened here, but with the relevant laws. Correct call. He also should be disbarred for attempting to argue that Rittenhouse's Fifth Amendment right to not incriminate himself is evidence of his guilt. Twice. The videos of someone being chased and beaten before using a gun in self-defense was pretty obvious. The biggest reflection I've got after watching tens of hours of trial during the past week. Almost all the talking heads on the media have it wrong to some degree. These clowns sit around and comment on everything under the sun. They get it wrong, and people take that as fact. I'm convinced that mixing news and entertainment is basically what will lead to this country's demise. Ada throws unwinnable case. My prediction. In a few years at most everyone will forget about this. Ada will receive a great in-state promotion appointment or a leg up into Washington. Looking forward to Nick Sandmann 2.0 on the media now. When the guy said he pointed the gun at Rittenhouse before Rittenhouse pointed his at him, the trial was over. It was clear to me that it was self-defense. LOL. The part where the prosecutors had their hands on their forehead said it all too. Even the guy knew he ducked up by saying that. I mean, props to the guy for not lying, I guess. Maybe he didn't realize he just shot a torpedo at himself. The prosecution, though, props to the guy for not lying, I guess. Well, lying under oath is a crime. So low bar. So is pointing your Glock at somebody. I'm not a lawyer, but the prosecutor shouldn't be either. It was the correct verdict. No rational person who actually saw the videos of the incident instead of simply believing what their TV told them would think this was anything other than self-defense. Couple of thoughts though. 1. The FBI drone footage clearly shows Rittenhouse trying to run away and being chased and attacked by the people he would then shoot. Okay, that's fine. But how come nobody is asking why the heck the FBI was there taking drone footage in the first place? The Ghislaine Maxwell trial is starting right now. Politically, this should be a much bigger deal, yet the media is practically silent on it. Why? Also, Epstein didn't kill himself. You're not wrong about Maxwell. In the Rittenhouse case there was a live feed that made it accessible to independent commentators and news organizations. In federal court you can only get transcripts and you have to pay for them. This means the only people who can cover the trial are the same media companies that were buddy-buddy with Epstein for all of those years. Pretty open and shut. Those prosecutors hate Call of Duty. LOL. I was initially against him back whenever this happened, then checked out completely. Looked into it again last week, and it seemed pretty clear he shouldn't be prosecuted. I still think he is an idiot for going, and his parents are obviously shit. But everything was pretty clearly self-defense. I saw someone use the phrase he's legally right, but he's still a dumbass. And I think that sums it up pretty well.